Welcome to True Health Live, your favorite public health podcast. We are live on YouTube, Facebook, and audio on your favorite podcast platforms. If you're interested in public health, then this is the space for you.
You're muted.
You're on mute.
I thought I hit the button. Peace and greetings, everyone. How are you? We are all here today. Welcome to our co-hosts. Go ahead and introduce yourself, ladies. We are all three here. Yay.
Yay. My name's Anushka Gopilal. I'm a public health professional. I'm so excited to be back with you ladies in our audience. It's my first episode for our third season. So I'm just happy to be here and to jump into this conversation.
We're happy to have you back. We missed you, especially for the hair one. But maybe we'll have a one. Yes. Not now, right?
Spin the block on that one because there's so much to talk about.
There's a lot to talk about with that one.
Mm-hmm. Peace. I am Yakira Eden, Precious Stepney, healthcare executive, and I have a new title down there. I think it says author. That's exciting. So I'm always happy to be here. It's always a pleasure to be able to come together and dig into public health, or from my perspective, mental health care needs of the community at large.
Good things. Yep. And so we're all here today. I'm gonna I don't think I introduced myself, but at this point, I'm Deidre Selly, also known as Yafe in my community. That's my divine name, and the other one is my government name. And this is True Health Live. Thank you for joining us. This is season 3, and we're already in episode 4. We've been moving. Because there's a lot to cover, right? Like there's, we've talked a lot about things, and some things have been reoccurring, but there's always something new to chat about. And there's always something, and because there's something new or something that's been altered, then there's more information that people have to know. So we're always going to be here. Well, as long as we can, we'll be here to help to disseminate and kind of sift through that information and get it out so everybody can understand. I'm going to go to the chat really quick. Peace, Anu Radio. Greetings, Naya. Greetings, Chief Yuya. Thank you for joining us. And peace to everyone, for those of you who will be joining in and coming in later or catching the replay. Peace and greetings to all of you. So today we have a very interesting topic. It's going to be one of a few different episodes of a series where we'll be getting into religion or spirituality and public health. So today is our first discussion on spirituality and public health, or spirituality and health. And it's a really important topic. And I know that Yakira Eden, aka Precious Stepney, is going to have a lot to share with us, because we do have a surprise later on in the show. But this is her wheelhouse. So I'm just along for the ride. I did want to share, however, the background on it, right? Because when we throw around the words like spirituality and religion, a lot of the times they're used interchangeably, but they are very different. Whereas spirituality, in the way it's used commonly, it's a broad concept, right? And it can refer to a wide range of things where it's practices or experiences that involve anything from inner peace to connectedness, or just feeling like there's a higher power somewhere out there. There's something that exists, some being, a deity or something that exists that's higher than oneself. And sometimes, though, ultimately it can lead to, and this is a deeper discussion, you can head on over. I'll put in the description where you can head on over for deeper discussions on spirituality and religion. But it can lead to just kind of out there and not necessarily really binding yourself to something. And that brings us to the difference between that and religion. And religion, if you really break down the word, it really means to go back and bind oneself to something. So if you're saying that you're religious, or you have a religion, that means you're binding yourself to that. And usually religion is really interwoven into culture many times. So we'll get into that. There's, some of it is a lot deeper, but you can definitely, I'll put in the description where you can head on over, which is Anu Life Global Ministries. And we have so many different segments and information for you to dig into that. But today we're going to talk about how spirituality, from that general sense, really does help with public health. And we've got a whole lot of like housekeeping and announcements that we'll share with you throughout, and different plugs. So I'm gonna stop right there and like let you ladies take it away and like kind of share what what your thoughts are on spirituality and health. Like, what is it to you? What does it mean? What have your experiences been?
I'll let Precious start since this is her.
Oh, okay. I definitely appreciate the opening and the introduction that you offered. Of course, like when you say spirituality and public health, of course, my mind goes to mental health. So the caveat is anything that I say, it's going to fall under the banner of public health because mental health falls under that umbrella. But when I think of the idea of spirituality and mental health, historically, the premise, I mean, even if you go back to like Freudian times, spirituality or even religion was actually identified as a risk factor and not a protective factor as it pertains to one's propensity to gain support, assistance, guidance, rooting, or even kind of if you had that lean towards a spiritual, a spiritual walk, that was actually of concern. And so to go, I sometimes I like to go back and give like, this is what it used to be. This is how mental health care or mental health was viewed at this time, at this point in time. And here we are now, where we know that in many instances, I'm sorry, I'm getting phone calls. I know. And I'm going to say the phone call is from my father, and he's very persistent. So when I do not answer, he calls back several times. So I apologize in advance. What? I should have turned my do not disturb on. But okay, he took 2 rejections as a don't call back this time. So I apologize, Father. You should be here watching.
Faja.
Faja, yes, my Faja is calling. So yeah, I tend to like to give the, historically this was the perspective versus where we are now. And so Freud linked religion, in particular, it wasn't so much spirituality, but religion to neuroses. And made specific, like considered one's spiritual walk as like a psychopathology. So it was not viewed as anything that was a positive, supportive factor, or what we would call today as protective factors, right? And just to kind of give a little bit of what a protective factor is, or what protective factors are. Those are the things in our lives that a practitioner or even just an individual offering you support can help you identify as those things that'll help to ground you. So some protective factors are you employed? Because we know that if you are, unemployed and facing a lot of mental stress, then that's extra stress. What do your family supports look like? What are your communal supports? Do you have a spiritual inclination? Do you believe, or do you have an acknowledgement of something greater than yourself?
Yeah.
Do you understand that, or even consider the fact that while you may not know it, that you have a particular purpose, and being able to for practitioners to recognize those things as protective factors, it actually allows them to understand the client or the patient even more intimately in an effort to support them. Yeah. That's just a little. That's just, I'll stop there.
I would love this topic because when I saw it, I was like, yes, we're gonna dig a little deeper. It's not usually a topic that's often spoken, right, in our profession. Um, I'm very spiritual. I come from a multicultural home and a multi-religion home, and so my mom was Hindu, well, is Hindu, and my dad is Christian. Um, as when I was a younger girl, my parents never forced either or on me. They always exposed us to different religions and just said to us that myself and my sister, as you get older, you understand you can make that choice for yourself. And so for me, I practice both. I had faith in both. And I have a cousin who's Muslim, and so he would do his traditions with his parents, and so we were very much exposed to all things. And so coming up and becoming a young woman to a full-blown adult and now a mom, I do the same thing with my daughter. I expose her to many religions, because I believe there's one God, just in different forms, because people practice in different forms, right? So whenever people talk about spirituality and religion, I get a little, and I say spiritual, I'm more spiritual than religious because I have a lot of questions when it comes to religion. There's some things I find contradicting, some things that don't make sense to me. And so I don't, I've never been one to follow suit, follow the trend or follow folks. I always follow my heart and my own intuition and my beliefs. And tradition does come into play with that, but my altar, for instance, I would say has Hindu goddess and gods and also has a cross. To me, I'm more spiritual because my faith is not just in one thing. I'm not tied to one thing. I'm tied to what I believe in. And so when you have a higher faith as it pertains to your health, when you're going through things, rather it be like a sickness or mental health, emotional health, like when you're going through things physically and mentally, that faith could really bridge the gap for you. It could give you so much more to look forward to. It can give you willpower, fighting power to fight what's happening in your life, right? So if it's mental health and emotional health, you could be depressed and feeling lost and defeated. I've experienced that in my life at a point where I felt so defeated, but I had to remember where there's faith, it can be fear, right? It has to be one out the other. And my faith has brought me long and far. So what do I count on? I count on God because I've seen proof. I've seen that the things that I believe in and the things that I do to uplift myself and to give thanks and gratitude and live in gratitude, even in the toughest of times, has pulled me through it, right? Has helped me cope. Even in sickness, I'll give you an example. Like, and everything that I will talk about on this episode is very much lived experiences, whether it be myself or my loved ones or friends and family or like around me. My my aunt, when she was pregnant with my little cousin, they told her he had. Could you hear me? Okay. That there were signs of Down syndrome, and the doctors encouraged her to abort, and she said, no, I'm not going to. This can't be true. But they kept on going, kept on testing, and the test kept coming up positive that it was he would be born with Down syndrome. She went to church, she did all the things, and she prayed. She just stayed faithful and prayed and did her offerings. In Hinduism, like you give fruit, flowers, and things of that nature, and just was constantly in church praying and had faith and had her spirituality. My cousin was born healthy, no Down syndrome, no medical, disparities, anything like that. And so that just goes to show, like, sometimes we can't always count on what people tell us, especially in medicine, in the healthcare field. You have to, yes, you take everything with a grain of salt, I think, and sometimes we get so confused by what doctors say because we put so much trust into what they say, that we forget that, wait, we need to also tap into our other belief systems, right?
Yeah.
And do other things. And so for me, as it ties all together, I think sometimes when we take the words of medical providers, if you're going through something, if you have a sickness, it can bring you down. But if you have a spirit that's believing in something higher, and you have faith, it levels the playing field, right? It makes you look forward to something. It gives you it gives you hope. And I think that's what ties into spirituality too, having hope. um some practices include things that make you feel good, so like smells and like scents, and physical things like flowers and things like that, that boost your spirit up. And there are rituals. I have a good friend who does like these baths and things like that. I don't do them, but that's her thing, and she makes her feel so great, right? And so that's part of her like spirituality, what brings her peace of mind, what makes her feel good, what helps her pour back out into others, and so on and so forth.
Mm-hmm. It's two words you mentioned that I thought was interesting, and it's belief and faith. And as I got older, like I learned um, that belief, when we believe something, it leaves room for doubt. And so that's why I got excited a little bit when you talked about faith, because I'm like, the faith is in knowing, and there is no doubt when you know. And so I think like for a lot of people, when they're leaning on, because and we all have, a different practice in our personal lives. And I'm talking about the co-host, and as well as like the people who are listening. And this show is for everybody. And so what we do on the show is in no way to say like what you're doing is wrong, but I encourage you to find out what we do. um, so I would say like, so when there's that like knowing and that like leaning into like what what your faith is, I think that's where the healing, comes in, right? And at that point, like I think it goes beyond feeling, it's what you can see. And that even brings us back to like the word spirituality, because spirit in another languages, it's breath, right? Or wind, but really breath. And when we think of breath, it's even the breath of the most high, or the breath of Yah, breathing into the first being, breathing into Adam, Adon. And when we add on the affix or the suffix ul, it's like the action, right? So it's that like actionable, like that moving breath. So like even that, like, so when we're utilizing like the words that when we understand the words that we're utilizing, like they have so much power, and they kind of bring us forward more into like understanding what's really happening with ourselves in our minds, with our thoughts. So yeah, I think that faith part, it's stronger. Not even I think, I know the faith part is way stronger than the belief, because when we're talking to the doctors, like you said, it's like we believe them, right? So there's always that doubt, like, what are they saying? Even sometimes when they talk to us, they're going off of a lot of research and hypotheses, and yes, a lot of things, like things that are more germane, they're evidence based. Like, you have a cold, you have a virus, this is what you got to do to get, we know what works. It's the observable, what we've been able to observe to say like this is how you get through it. But then there are a lot of other things, like like you mentioned today. It's the things that they believe. They give us the hypothesis, or what they think, or the theory of what's happening with us. So then there's room for doubt, and it's like, well, nobody knows. If you don't know, I don't know. So then I have to lean on something else.
Right. And when I say belief, I mean, I was speaking in terms of believing in my faith, right? And so, and trust me, there's always room for doubt. But when it comes to the higher being, like what my faith is, there is never any doubt, even in the toughest of times. Regardless if I go to the doctor and they say something, and me, I question everything, because we work in this space, so we know, like, right, like as you said, we know like this, your what you say is not the end all be all. But without faith, I would be a wreck, right? I would be a wreck. I would take this one's word, that one's word, and go off the hinge with that, right? But because
All
I have a high faith, in my belief system, in my God, I know that no matter what crosses my path, I'm going to be okay. And when it comes to my health, can I do better? Absolutely. Right. And what pushes me, what motivates me and drives me to do better is my faith. Right. It's my faith in God wanting the best for me, and his promise coming to me and believing in that. And the fact that I know that in order for me to be better, I have to do better. Right. Because if we sit here and think that, okay, well, I have faith and I have a higher belief system, so I'm just going to sit here because what's meant to be will be. Yeah, that's true too. But you also have to do your due diligence. You have to do your part. And so doing your part and then having your faith kick in, it all ties it together.
Mhm.
Allows us to live better and, make better decisions for ourselves when it comes to our physical health, but also our mental and emotional health.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. The doing is important. You
Mhm.
have to do your part. To do be actionable. You can't just say, what? Like, whatever it is, what it's gonna be.
Right. Like I'm looking for this job. I'm sitting here. I'm doing my part. I'm putting in all the applications, networking, all that stuff. But I know what's for me is not going to pass me. Right. I have that mentality, but I'm also being diligent enough to do my part because a closed mouth doesn't get fed. And God only helps. God helps who helps themselves. You know.
Mhm.
Right. So as I'm listening to you both deliberate, I'm like, right, because we often hear faith walk, right? So there's always this connection, or faith without works is dead, right? That's scriptural. But there's always this acknowledgement that we have to move in our faith, right? We have to move in a knowing. Um, and that movement is like guided by this acknowledgement that I'm headed somewhere. I'm headed somewhere because something is giving me the drive, or that efficacy to head in a particular direction. It's like you can look at spirituality. I would say if you like Googled it, or you just begin to like explore it as a concept, you'll see everything from faith to enlightenment and mysticism to, self-assertiveness. But what's interesting is like you can include community in there, because usually it's rooted in family and community. No matter what your faith walk is, or what your spiritual discipline is, it's usually connected with others. It's not often a walk that you may have to at times walk that journey alone, right? Intentionally. As we observe so many times in scripture, there were so many that were set apart or put apart for a particular time or season in order to one, connect with Yah more intimately, or sometimes to even be challenged, right, in a particular moment, which again is an opportunity to exercise that faith walk. And I want to like tie back or bind the connection back to the idea of mental health, or even public health is the larger umbrella, to just encourage people, whether you're a practitioner, or, I mean, every practitioner is still a client/patient, right? We all seek and receive care.
Yeah.
To consider how spirituality not only impacts your life and how you go about providing and soliciting health services, but consider how it impacts the lives of your clients, because that's what's really important. We want to be able to connect in as many ways as possible, because ultimately it is about self-efficacy. It is about, a client being able to recognize what resources they have around them. Perhaps it's in a moment of crisis, or just a really stressful time. I know we'll talk later about it, but I like was really excited to finish up my book. And in it, right? So Scriptural Guide for Overcoming 7 Mental Ailments. And oh, look at that. There it is on the screen. So in the Scriptural Guide to Overcoming 7 Mental Ailments, I wanted to make a really clear distinction, like as to why I didn't say 7 mental illnesses, right? Because often when we see the term mental illness, it immediately, I know it takes me to the DSM, right? It takes me to psychiatric hospitals and, psychotropics, and the reality is there is a distinction between an ailment and an illness, right? And an ailment is usually the really small components of what will eventually make up an illness. And so those really small components, like for example, it's just stress, mental fog, loneliness, angst, worry, fear. These are all those small, and you might be thinking they're not small. Like when I'm experiencing it, and trust me, I experience lots of it, typing each page, each word. It doesn't feel small. And that's why being able to resource, right? To know what resources you have, to no matter what your spiritual guiding light is, right? To be able to at least recognize that you have something, know what it is, and allow that to be what pushes you or propels you through. Because oftentimes, that is the difference. I can go on and on. So y'all just come on, jump in, because I'll just keep on.
I like what you're saying. I love what you're saying about knowing, right, what it is you need. I think, like for myself, for example, I always felt like I was very connected, and even to, like, and connected to myself. And we know as individuals ourselves better than anyone. And so when I'm dealing with stress, the first thing I do is get a moment to myself where it's quiet, where it's still, where I can tap into my spirit, right? I'm not running to the doctor. I'm not calling my, physician. Like I feel like yada, 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 unless it's severe, something severe. But the first thing I know is that I need to sit and be still, sometimes in my home, by my altar, or I go by the water, and just have a moment to myself where I'm trying to clear my mind, because I have 10,000 and 1 million things going by every second. But just to clear my mind, breathe, right? A breath of fresh air, just to give myself permission to just breathe and not think about anything else, to get recentered in self. Say a quick prayer, thank myself and give myself grace to even acknowledge what I need in that moment of being stressed out. Because sometimes, we forget that we have everything we really need within, right? If we dig a little bit deeper, sometimes you'll be able to realize that, and we can use ourselves as resources, right? And rather that be, we like to hum, or we like to listen to a gospel or whatever kind of music that you like to listen to that serves you. Some people like to journal, meditate, do yoga, things like that bring you back to yourself and bring you back to some ease. That helps, like yoga, meditation, journaling. It helps with mental and emotional health. It helps with diseases and things like that as well, because you're serving yourself in a way that is combating the illnesses, right? It doesn't always take medication. Sometimes just a change of scenery and environment can do a world of a difference, right? And environment can be your physical environment or your mental environment, and what's the saying, when you shift your mindset, you're shifting everything. You'll be surprised. And so if I'm panicky and have anxiety and I'm running to the doctor all the time, eventually they're going to want to medicate me, right? I'm going to take this, take that, take. It may cause more harm long term than it does, as far as healing, giving me healing. Whereas if I can just sit for a moment and have my thoughts to myself and release, that could be so much more helpful. Help me work through anxiety and stressors, help me identify what initiates the stress, right? And what can help aid it, and where I don't have to get on medication and things of that nature. But it, like you said, Precious, just knowing yourself and being able to go back and utilize all resources.
You know, as you were speaking, I was like, balance. That's, it's bringing, getting yourself back to a place of balance. And I think both are true. Like sometimes it is like that internal reset. But does it mean you have to do the whole thing alone, or that you should do the whole thing alone? No. Right. And that goes back to what you were saying, Akira. Um, there has to be someone that's further along the path sometimes to help you get there. At the same time, you should also know what helps to get you back to that balanced place, like you were speaking of. And it can be like you said, the meditation, the yoga. And interestingly enough, like there are many spiritual traditions that incorporate those things specifically. Like here in the West, everything's like, oh, I'm gonna meditate, I'm gonna yoga. A lot of these are actually pulled directly from spiritual practices for people. Like Buddha, like meditation is a central practice in Buddhism, and it's to help develop insight, wisdom, compassion. Those things. Yoga originated in another country. Like a lot of people say India, but we know that it actually comes from further east than that. But a lot of these, people, they do it, and whatever it does, it helps, even if it's exercise. Because I know for me sometimes, like when I run, I get to a place of, I don't want to say nirvana, but like other people like have experienced it, where you it is almost like a meditative state. You're like in a zone, and you can kind of tune out and get to a space mentally where you need to kind of get back to that center, if you will. I'm gonna go to the chat. Go ahead and say what you're gonna say, and then I'm gonna run to the chat.
Yeah, I see the chat is lit up. People got things to say. No, exactly. Like when I always hear to, even coming up, like if you're in an argument, especially like spouses or significant others, you're in a heated argument, walk away, go exercise. But that just, it's in terms like of what you were saying. You're exercising, you might be angry and you're on the treadmill, right? And you're running around, like, and you're talking to yourself and you're like saying all the things that you want to say. Eventually that movement takes you away from that anger. By the time you have completed that run, right, you're now calm. You're those thoughts aren't at the top of your brain, and the anger has been suppressed a little, or released through your movement. So yeah, I agree, because when I'm upset, if I go for a walk or if I go for a drive, whatever, if I just decide to, like, okay, separate myself from things, that really does help. Or if I just listen to like calming noise sounds, that helps. So it's all these different things that we can utilize.
Yeah, yeah. So I'm gonna run to the chat real quick because it's running away from me. So welcome and greetings and peace to everyone that came in after. So on LinkedIn, greetings Hilda Garcia Archangel and Zach Latimer. Peace, peace, peace. Or Aki Zach, welcome to the space. And on YouTube, welcome Master Menelek and Darian Lampley, Aki Darian, and Sovereign Eats. How are y'all? I also, just FYI, I did put the link in the um, chat. So if anybody has anything they want to add on, like live, as always, feel free to jump on board and share your 2 cents, or 3 or 4 or more. So I'm just going to read some of these comments. So Anu Radio says, yeah, like when they give you a certain amount. And, just for those of you listening, for those of you watching, we read them aloud because this is a podcast. And so people who are listening, they can't see what you wrote. So we read them out loud. So Anu Radio says, yeah, like when they give you a certain amount of time to live, that really plays with boundaries of godliness, right? Like, it's like, well, how do you know the day and the time, And it's like, yeah, they're going off of like what they've seen, but again, like you don't know. and and I don't know, it makes me think about Chief's podcast today about the Jezebel spirit, and it's like the surgeons. He talked about the surgeons having that complex, and it's like the control, and it's like the God complex, and that's almost the psychopathic. It's like, well, who are you? Like, how would you know somebody's hour and day, and of when they are done on this time, on this plane.
Yeah. I think with that, even like before you even go further in the chat, with that idea, and we've touched on it before, but that's where having a knowing becomes so important, right? Having a faith walk becomes really, really pivotal. And I know in the future we're going to have one of our resident nurses come on board to really share about, how that may impact patients, when we talk about failure to thrive. So many times the difference between that patient who they can receive the same prognosis, the one who has a faith walk, who has that spiritual rooting and community that supports them and offers that affirmation and reminds them to do that breath work and to still move their body and to and empowers them to move towards healing and wellness. That is oftentimes the difference between whether the time you're given is truly the time or not. Right. And there's research that supports that. And I know I've spoken about it before because it's so scary to consider that they would actually use something like give two people a placebo, but tell one, we know for sure this is going to work. You're going to get better. And watch those people get better in comparison to the other cohort where they say, this is likely not going to help you, but take it anyway. And then you watch them not get better. Again, it's really truly all about your ability to know and to affirm that something greater is guiding you. And a lot of times that's even connected to purpose, right? Knowing, even if you may not know your purpose, right. I find comfort. I find comfort in, when I have asked, because I have asked many times, well, what is my purpose? The response that I often get from Chief Yuya is, what are you doing right now? What is the purpose for the conversation or whatever activity you're engaged in that moment? Your purpose in that moment is to be fully present and fully engaged and immersed in whatever that opportunity is in that moment, and to move and respond in right action. And so even if we, want that bigger picture, even if we're guided by that purpose, that in the moment purpose, it pulls you through.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
We have a lot from Akizak. He says faith is a huge part of the healing journey. I think it takes one conscious brain off the front line and allows it to rest. Yeah. There's not always this like, what am I doing? The noise and the chatter. Faith in the law too, and divine law, which can help one know what to consume and what to bypass. So many times, and I think this came up on the discussion where we were talking about fake food, our last, and talking about like the smell of food and how animals will actually pass something by if it doesn't smell right. So it's primal instinct. Like there's not even like I have to think about this. It don't smell right. I'm bypassing it. I'm not going to take this into my body. And so we have to even move like that when it comes to not just food, but like maybe even an overall experience, or maybe like people or persons, that are in our lives, or maybe on the peripheral of our lives, right? He said you ain't never lied. I think that was something you were saying. I'm not sure because we're a little bit behind. Evidence-based practice in one's L, absolutely. You know, like it's what you can see, what you know, that observed, those observed results from God or from your God. Peace Akidarian, he says, Zach Latimer says, community will have a jive turkey skip to the mystical aspects because it will start to point to one's character.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So,
Right.
I'm gonna, you know, kind of go over here. And again, everybody's practice is what it is. And so, but then there has to be like, you know, what it kind of goes
Character
into
development. Yeah.
development. What is your purpose? What is your purpose in the moment? Or are you just kind of floating around? I'm not really going to stick to anything, you know, like, you know, because then how can you have faith in a thing if you're not going to, you know, stick to something?
Right.
The connection from seen to an unseen, which starts to create the foundations and building blocks. I think he's talking, okay, put it on the resume. I think he's talking about the book. You don't put the book on the resume.
Yeah, you know, thank you. We'll do. We won't do that.
Okay. When not confronted, those things, I was making up words. Those things get stronger as one begins to attempt to suppress them. They keep knocking at the door, letting one know, I'm an aspect of you that's damaged. Give me some love. And it's if we don't sit with those things, so it's kind of like what you were saying, Anishka, like if we're not getting to that place of balance, like we're not kind of seeing like where we need to center, then those things are always going to come up if we don't sit with whatever it is and maturely work through it. Then it always is going to rear its ugly head. It's similar to like how people say, if you don't know your history, you're doomed to repeat it. Like you don't know it because you haven't sat with it, right?
Right. And sometimes that's hard for people to like just sit with things, right? They're not ready. Sometimes people just aren't ready. And so it's so hard, but that's absolutely true.
Yeah.
Right.
It's similar to the we know in healthcare, so we, you know, kind of bring it back to the health piece. And in healthcare, or in the health arena, we know that there are Black people, African Americans, however you identify yourself, deeply melanated people, what is the word? ADOS, whatever you identify yourself as, we know that there's a history of lack of trust, right? And even within that, sometimes it's a little bit more nuanced, like where, and I've experienced this with one of my own parents. I don't want to go because I don't want to know what it is. It's like the idea of like, well, if I don't know what it is, it doesn't make it final. And then I can kind of skirt my way around it and I have done that myself. If I don't know what it is, I have to deal with it and it'll go away. That's insane. That makes no sense. It makes no sense whatsoever.
Yeah. You know, that idea of suppression though is it's like we keep touching on it, and each time I make a little mental note, well, I literally jot it down. Because what we suppress, right, or press down, we more deeply rooted within ourselves. So it's like instead of bringing it up and out, we pack it in and we pack it down. You know, it's like those vacuum seal bags. But then we only vacuum seal more angst and more worry and more negativity. But we keep buying vacuum seal bags. So whether you're storing stuff under that bed or in those closets or wherever you're putting all these vacuum seal containers, you're filling up this space. And yeah, I'm talking vacuum seal containers, but really I'm talking what we do to our own bodies. And earlier you touched on that balance that Anushka was speaking to. But when we stuff down and compress and repress, what we wind up doing is throwing ourselves out of balance, physically, mentally, spiritually out of balance. And I love that, you know, we've identified all of these Yes, emotion, right. So I love that we've spoken on all of these different tools because, you know, things like journaling and yoga and breath work and, you know, studying scriptures or studying sacred texts. These things, these modalities, these technologies were created as a means by which to, like, off gas, right? Like, let's just open the lid up. Let's let some of that out, so that we can restore homeostasis, so that we can restore balance. Um, I, I'll share that I recently had a procedure, and I was so anxious about how the procedure was going to. It was very, I guess, relatively minor procedure. But when you have an imbalance in your body, right? Even when you go to address it, whether, let's say it's a cyst and it's like, oh, the cyst is removed, or, you know, if it's a fibroid tumor and, oh, either it's been removed or we've cut off blood supply or whatever they do, your body still has to recalibrate. Your body still has to heal. Your body still has to say, okay, this thing that doesn't belong here, or these thoughts, right? Let's take it back to that. Well, I'll take it back to the mental ailments. These thoughts that do not belong here, they've taken up shop in space. And we know they've taken up shop in space in more than just our minds, right? Or our brain, because you feel it in your shoulders and you feel it in your neck and you feel it in your lower back, and then your head starts hurting. Those are signs of, aha, this is where it's hiding, right? This is where those errant thoughts are hiding. And it actually made me smile, because for anyone that has the book, which you'll find it, and if you don't, get it, you know, if you like, I would appreciate it.
Had some new
Oh,
people.
what book is that? Oh, see that. I'm so, all right. I'm gonna get better at this. Thank you, because I'm like, I don't have to say it every time. Scriptural Guide to Overcoming 7 Mental Ailments. So in this particular book, I actually go through different activities, right? Body activators. So is it gonna stay up there? Wow. Okay. Thank you. I go through body activators, or I introduce you to different body activators, recognizing that, and you touched on it, Akoti, Sister Yafe, that yoga yoga is actually designed to do more than just tone your body, right? And it's for a lot more than just like meditation is for a lot more than just how long can you sit in one position.
Right.
That's actually the least of it, right? It's about being able to navigate through different physical and mental channels in order to channel healing, right? So in the body activators, there are particular stretches, I'll say, that helps to open the heart, or open the groin area, and you store stress there. So you can, I've experienced being in a particular asana or pose and start crying. And it's like, well, why am I crying right now? But it's very common because, have you?
I cry sometimes because it hurt. Like,
Oh, God. So silly. She's so silly. Not, you know what? You come on, behave now. She's like, I know why I cry. Because those squats you make me do. No, but sometimes you're having emotional releases. And that's a part of, that idea of stretching your body and stretching your mind and allowing, that which needs to actually come out to come up and to come out, so that you're not walking around angry and stressed. So yeah, I just liked how, those tools, those modalities keep popping their head up like, hey, yeah, this is what we're here for, to bring you back to balance. Mm-hmm.
I think we make so many better decisions for ourselves when we are centered and balanced, right? We think so much better. We have clarity. It takes away all the fog, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, So I want to say, I'm going to say welcome to those who have joined the space. Mario, hello from Portugal. Peace. Greetings from Portugal. I don't know what time it is over there. It's like, are they like 6 hours ahead or 5 hours ahead? It's late where you are. Peace. Thank you for joining us because it's very late. So we appreciate you. Remember, like, share, subscribe. And also, for those of you, it's your first time joining us, like Hilda and Mario, the link is always put into the chat. It should be posted. I think it is in LinkedIn as well as on the Facebook and YouTube channels. And if you ever want to join live on a conversation because you have something you just got to get off your chest in relation to the conversation, you are welcome to come on. And I'm going to run to the chat really quick. Peace, Aquia Visa. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Zach says, that's like, and I did put some of the comments on the screen because we gotta get through some of these posts. Aquia Visa says we should remember that those who are diagnosed with terminal diseases ask how long they have as well. They don't share that part. There is, because, and I think that comes with it's like the Chief U.S. says all the time, if you don't pick a culture, if you don't have a culture, one will be chosen for you. And I think, like, because we live in this society and these times where, you know, we think like we're supposed to ask, like, well, how long do I have? Right? We're supposed to put that belief and sometimes even put that faith in the man or woman, you know, but man standing in front of you to give you what your hour is, right? You know, and again, no, they don't give you the exact hour, but you know, to give you, like, you know, your estimation. But again, they're going off of what they've seen. But if you are moving from a space where you are centered and balanced, and you know that a higher power moves, and you have that faith, then a lot of times, and it's been proven, you know, it's been seen, I should say, you know, it surpasses whatever that time that they've given you. You know, we've seen that time and time again. And a lot of the time, and it should be noted that, you know, over 84% of the world's population, like, has some sort of system to, you know, spiritual system or religion that they bind themselves to. So that's, you know, that is nothing to be overlooked. You know, people aren't just like, you know, willy-nilly out here like, oh, well, you know, it is what it is. There are a lot of people who do bind themselves to something that is like, this is stronger than me. And I know, even though I know that I'm temporal, I know that there's something else that's eternal. And that's where I'm going to hitch my wagon to. Okay. Zach says, living rent free in your psyche. Speak on it, sis. I don't know. Was that me or you? I don't know. I think
it's all of the thoughts that we have living and active that impede us from, like, just maintaining balance in our lives. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I just wanted to, go ahead.
No, go ahead. I'm like, yes, there's plenty. People, you know, make jokes out of this, gonna be rent free in my head forever. Maybe some things shouldn't be rent free.
Right. Shouldn't live there. Right. Shouldn't live there. Like, evict it immediately. You know, as you were reading Aquia Bisa's comment, all I could think of was, you know, yeah, that's such a good point to make. And it shows how readily many give over even those who may have a spiritual doctrination or indoctrination or a religious foundation. They will view their healthcare practitioner as their God in that given moment. They'll accept fully, or even solicit, as Aquia Bisa is saying, solicit their time, their number, their hour, as if that's possible. And then there are so many who will say, and we see it on LinkedIn all the time, or in social media all the time, I was given X amount of months, days, weeks to live. I was told I would never walk. I was told I would not do this. Yet here I am running a marathon, or here I am, 20, 30, 40 years later. And I would venture to say a balanced will, right? That's like, no, it doesn't matter what you're telling me. This is where I'm willing myself to be here beyond what you're saying right now. Yeah. So that's telling as well.
Yeah. I'm going to read this one last comment, and then we're going to do some housekeeping. Zach Latimer says, heck, I know people who went in for surgery on a shoulder. Wrong one. It would be wise to do a discount double check on these diagnoses. Yeah, second opinion, and in these days, third and fourth sometimes.
Yeah, wrong site surgeries are really common. More common even now than we'd like to acknowledge. I will say, I think I touched on it the last time, but really, really quickly, that over the past like 10, 15 years, there have been many, many more national patient safety goals that set the standard for how procedures are to occur in order to decrease the number of wrong site surgeries. But unfortunately, I think what tends to happen is the practitioner, becomes so routinized and so comfortable and so familiar that even though there are checks and balances and there are checks and redundancies even, it still happens. I mean, it still happens. Wrong site surgery is one thing. Items are still left in, post-op items you're stitched up with items still, gauze and other items still in you. Even though everything is counted and supposed to be accounted for. If you start out with 20 gauze, that nurse needs to verify that you have 20 gauze before that individual is closed up. Yeah, it's so much.
Give us a walk away before we close out, and give some housekeeping and some other, plugs. Give us a walk away from the book. What can people walk away with?
Sure. So you know what? I'll share a little bit from the book. I actually pulled an excerpt from chapter 2, which touches on self-doubt. And yes, the book, Scriptural Guide to Overcoming 7 Mental Ailments. Thank you. Because I'll just say the book. So I offer some tips. And here I'm just going to share one, maybe 2 of the tips. So a tip for overcoming self-doubt. One tip is seek instruction. While it's important to work on ourselves, it's also a good idea to get support from others. Get instruction and guidance from your mate, if married, from an elder within your community, or even an expert in a given field, are all beautiful ways to clear your doubts, right? This act alone can serve to parse baseline doubt from justified doubt, right? Because there are times when, I needed to prepare here, right? This sort of doubt or this sort of, self-doubt, I may actually need to go study a little bit more, right? As opposed to thinking that I can just wing it. So that's how you can kind of be helped there. And then I pull on a scriptural reference. So here I actually pulled on Proverbs 11:14. It says, for even scripture says that it is in the multitude of counsel there is safety. Where no counsel is, the people fall, but in the multitude of counselors, there is safety. So it's just acknowledging that you need a community. You need wise counsel. You need elders and those guides to kind of say, okay, this is how you navigate this, so that you don't get stuck in the fog of self-doubt. Another that was touched on earlier is that idea of affirmation or speaking positivity to yourself. And that is another way to overcome self-doubt and silence those negative voices in our heads. Often when we think of affirmation, it's really affirmations of gratitude. It's acknowledging what you have right then and there in the moment. And so often, just those acts of gratitude takes you out of that doubting mindset because you recognize, as and Anushka touched on this earlier, you have all that you need. If you're fashioned in the image and likeness of your Yah, you have, or your Elohim, you have it, right? It's just a matter of that right code, that right combination. Those are just, that's just a little bit that I wanted to share with you all, to just remain encouraged by keeping community, seeking out community, making sure that that you understand, the value of your spiritual walk, and that you align yourself with righteous spiritual guidance and instruction, and use discernment when doing so, when seeking that.
Yeah, give thanks. I don't want Zach's comments about, because he this is in reference, it's related to what you just said, as well as the comment about kind of leaning on the white coats, leaning onto something
Yeah.
other is best. And he says that's a big thing too. Big Mama no longer can help with the home remedies. Like, we've lost a lot of that. Talked about food, get books, learn up on these things. Even in the prepping, our preparedness episode, he said that they must come from someone in a white coat now. Like, that's kind of where people have kind of leaned off, and it's because something's being chosen for you, because you're not going seeking what you came here with already. That, and the guidance of a righteous community and people who share, your same values. So you're kind of like stuck in the base of everything else, right? And so we want to make sure that we can get out of that. So, with that being said, is there anything else before we go into segue into some of the comments? And this is a really great episode. Give thanks, ladies, for chiming in and also sharing. Give thanks for sharing your work, Yakir Eden. And let people know where they can get it. So we're gonna segue into some of the things that we have coming up, both on djsully.com as well as at Honor Life Global Ministries. But let people know where they can get the book.
The book. Spiritual Guide to Overcoming 7 Mental Ailments is available on Amazon, right? You can get a digital copy for your Kindle. You can get a hard copy, a paperback copy on Amazon. And yeah. And if you do get it and you find it helpful, please share it and share your comments, share reviews, because ultimately, that's what this anything that we put out, it's really about helping others and sharing information and highlighting, that which is edifying, and helps us to grow. I'll definitely be sharing excerpts and actually doing some of the body activators and remembered activities. So if you've read the book, you know what I'm referring to, but there are lots of really fun activities towards the end of, or at the end of every chapter. And so on Alpha Woman Now, on my YouTube channel, I'll actually begin to do some of those activities with you all. We'll do them together. I'll do them live. So we'll be doing breath work and journaling, and we're going to push past some of these mental stressors and ailments that we have together.
Yes, give thanks. And as always, we're going to put all of the resources mentioned in the episode in the description box below. And for those of you who are listening via the podcast, you can go to, and those of you who are watching, you can go to djsully.com, where you can find the list as well of all of the resources and the mentions, the important mentions in the podcast. And so with that being said, there's some other items that we are also going to share when it comes to True Health Live. If you would like to be on the show, you have anything you want to share, you can email us at www.truehealthlive@gmail.com, www.truehealthlive@gmail.com. And if you also would like to be on the show, you can visit us at deidreselly.com/podcast, where you will see the link to schedule on our Calendly site, and you can schedule the time and date that, well, it's only one time, but you can schedule the date that you would like to be on, and it has a few questions on, kind of the topics that are of interest to you, or you can go with what we'll have on the schedule or on the menu that day. Some other things that are going on, we talked a lot about spirituality, and so I want to make sure I'm sharing here. The community that we're a part of, Our New Life Global Ministries, also has a retreat coming up. And so the retreat is coming up in June. It's coming up this summer 2023. So for those of you who are watching and you want to get more information on spirituality, or finding a spiritual family, definitely make sure you visit Our New Life Global Ministries. Oh, you're welcome, Aki Zach. Our New Life Global Ministries.org, ournewlifeglobal.org, and you can sign up for the retreat. Our theme this coming summer is Kingdom Culture, and you can either click the QR code or you can register online by going to the website. We also have, so some of you who also have worked with me and our co-hosts know that I love Red Wrap. And so we are having a menstrual hygiene drive. So menstrual hygiene day is coming up. And so we always try to do something. So for those of you who are in the Raleigh, North Carolina area, if you would like to volunteer or donate to our drive, you can donate via our Amazon wish list, which is the link on the screen, or you can go to the ournewlifeglobal.org website on the Red Wrap page, and you can sign up to either volunteer or donate that way. Or you can send any donations directly to the Diaper Bank of New York. Make sure you put Diaper Bank of North Carolina. Just make sure you put attention Red Wrap. Or you can always go to our GoFundMe page, which is gofundme.com/Red Wrap. Everything can always be found on the website. Also, as we are speaking about things to do to release stress, I will be working with the YMCA, one of the YMCAs in the Raleigh Triangle area, Research Triangle area. And we're going to be doing beading because crafting is known to, reduce stress. So this is an all skill level workshop. It is going to be for members in that area, but I am sharing it here. So for those of you who are in the Raleigh area or even in New York, if you would like to book a workshop, please reach out to the contact information on the screen, and we will go from there. So this is really an episode about like what we can do to center, balance, de-stress, get our mental health right. Because when it comes to public health, we have to talk about all aspects, not just the policy, the advocacy, what are we doing physically, mentally. So those are all key components of public health. So that is our episode for today. Give thanks to you ladies for joining. Give thanks for all of you who joined the build in the chat. Those of you who are going to listen later, make sure you, for those of you who are listening on any of your favorite podcast platforms, make sure you review. Please leave a review. Rate the podcast. Leave any comments in the chat. I always respond to them and give thanks for all of you. Also, speaking of health and de-stressing, so for those of you who are still watching, we are going to head over to our brother's YouTube channel, he's already started. We're 13 minutes late. So he's actually doing drawing, and it is Master Menulek. So if you can just go on YouTube and you search for Master Menulek, he is doing drawing and giving lessons on drawing. And I have started doing it, and it is sort of really, really nice and de-stressed. I know how to draw flowers now, y'all. I mean, not by myself, but not tracing. It is freehand, but I have to watch somebody do it and kind of follow along. But it is so like stress relieving. So I encourage you all to like head on over to that channel, and he'll be there, for some time. And you can, kind of de-stress on your Tuesday evening. Peace, everyone. Give thanks.
Peace and thank you. This was great.
Good night.
Good night.